the Software Process and Measurement Cast number 719. The SPaMCAST is on a 3-week hiatus. We'll be back with new programming on September 25th. In the interim, I asked the SPaMCAST columnists, Jeremy, Jon, Susan, and Tony, for a couple of favorite columns they delivered. Today, we have Jeremy Berriault with Your Scrum Master is Not Your Team Admin. That's from SPaMCAST 705. Tony Timbol with Agile Requirement Lifecycle from SPaMCAST 709. And Susan Parente with Virtual Agile from SPaMCAST 589. Enjoy! Hey, do you have questions that you would like Susan, Jon, Jeremy, Tony, or myself to answer? Leave a voice message at 01-440-668-5717 or email at spamcastinfo@gmail.com. We'll answer your question on the podcast. We'll disguise our voices. No, we'll do that. Jeremy Berriault, welcome to the Software Process and Measurement Cast.
It is always a pleasure to be here, Tom.
Jeremy, your QA corner is always a pleasure to have. We tend to stray outside of the QA corner and go sometimes to the Scrum Master corner. But
well, it's all about quality.
Hopefully it's all about quality because that's really where it all counts. Jeremy, let's face it, it's a tough road to go when, as a leader, whether it's a QA leader, a testing leader, a Scrum Master, people actually expect you to be the team admin. How does that work? Does that work?
No, it doesn't work. It's not. And I understand where, like, kind of how it got there or where it comes from. Because if you're the leader, you know what's going on. You should be involved in everything that's going on. And so, you're being asked to schedule meetings here and there and getting stuff done. That's where I see that's coming in, because they want you to be there as a leader to stay informed on everything going on. But looking at it from a leader standpoint, it does get a bit taxing in that a leader's role is really to help others become better at what they do, right? Like, it's to provide for them so that they can be empowered. It's allowing them to get the stuff done for them. And for me, in my many roles that I've had, like from Scrum Master to QA lead to executive, I've always pushed the teams that I was with to let them do what they needed to get done. Give them that opportunity. And it's easier from that standpoint, because now it's almost like the old adage, you teach a man to fish. Let them learn how to kind of deal with stuff on their own, and then you just kind of oversee them and making sure things get done.
I guess I'm troubled still. You know, the old adage, teaching a person to fish is one thing, but updating somebody's Jira or whatever their tool of choice is, or booking meetings, I'm sorry, their fingers broke?
Yeah, I'm sure you've run into it. I've run into it, where I've been asked, could you schedule a meeting between me and person like Jane Doe? And it'd be very rude for me to, in the middle of another meeting where this question came, I was like, well, why can't you do it yourself? I think there you gotta treat it as a coaching opportunity to those individuals. Like, kind of maybe do it once just because it happened, but at the same time coach them, say, it's like, you can do this on your own. I got other stuff I need to do to help everyone else on the team. I think it'd be better if you did this on your own, because now, and then you can just report back onto it. I've gone into one meeting where I was asked to scheduled it, planned it. We're on Teams, and about 10 minutes in, I left. I just dropped off. I put in the text, okay, I'm dropping off, got to take a call or something like that. And the meeting went on by its own. I went to the person that asked me to organize that meeting to see how it went. Nope, everything was fine. Everything was good. We did this. We got all the information we need. And I kind of politely says, like, okay, well, I think now, like, you can just do that on your own. Like, you didn't need me in that meeting because there was nothing for me to do. So, like, I left because I had other stuff I got to do. If there is a meeting where I am definitely needed, great, I'll help out. I'll do whatever I need. But if it's something for you to do and for you to get the information for, then, like, by all means, you don't need me to schedule a meeting for you. You can do this on your own. You have the tools where you can see everyone's schedule.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying, Jeremy. I'm looking at the role of the Scrum Master in many circumstances. I buy the Scrum Master booking the standing meetings, and God forbid you should call them ceremonies. I mean, I was an altar boy. I know what ceremonies really are. But, I mean, so I understand booking those. Being somebody's admin, I mean, we don't do that anymore. Maybe there are places in the world where, you can have an admin. God, would I love an admin. But I don't see the role of the person playing the Scrum Master or the QA lead or anything like that as an admin role. That it's like, book a meeting for me. Well, I think that's almost a passive aggressive territorial attack on the position.
And I agree on that. I've had conversations with people's managers about that, where it's like, I was a Scrum Master. I went in and same thing, like, asked me to book meetings. And I went to the other person manager, like, going, I'm not here as an admin, and you have individuals on your team that asking me to book meetings between teammates or between whomever. And that I've only done that as a last resort. Normally I would just try to coach through saying, hey, you don't need a meeting. You got Teams, you got Zoom, you got Slack, whatever technology you're using. And, like, it's no different than, like, especially now because we're all away working from home, that it's no different than if we're working in an office all co-located. You pop your head up your desk and talk to someone. Pinging them and saying, hey, John, I got a question. No different than popping your head up off the desk. Some of the pushback I got for that was, well, they might be working on something else, or they might be doing this, it might be interrupting them. Like, well, but if you go to their desk and you say something to them, you're doing the same thing. At least if you send a text.
My point is less that a meeting, and God forbid, I'm not a big fan of meetings. I think you know that, but it's as a Scrum Master, and I've played that role so many times that, I don't know. Sometimes I tell my wife that's what I do for a living, but I'm there to enable an organization. I'm there to enable the team. I'm there to get blockers out of the way. I am not there to, I do teach people how to brew really good French roast coffee, but I'm not there to serve that coffee. I'm there to actually get my hands dirty, get involved, help the team move forward, not book their meetings. If they need an admin, I can get them an admin. And very frankly, they'll pay a hell of a lot less for an admin than they would a Scrum Master.
Yeah. Like I said, like to teach someone to fish outside of doing it yourself. I've always pushed back with every team I've had to get them to do stuff on their own. And I think one of the things I've always done, and I've always said, and I've even said this as a Scrum Master, as a coach, look at me as kind of either the shield of getting the noise, ensuring the noise doesn't get into the team, or as the kind of the voice of the negotiating voice or anything like that to help you remove any sort of activity. But outside of that, everyone knows what they got to do. Everyone's working together as a team, work as a team to figure it out. Like no different than hockey. You look at a hockey team on the ice, you got 6 players on the ice, and the coach isn't on the ice with each player telling them what to do or helping them move the puck. The players are working together in sync to move the puck and try to score and defend their goal at the same time.
You just described the role of the Scrum Master. It is the role of the coach to make sure they are the coach at the level of helping people understand you're playing left wing or you're playing a defenseman. Those are 2 fundamentally different positions. They have 2 different responsibilities. They have to relate, they have to coordinate, but it isn't the role of the coach to run out on the ice and go, Bobby, pass it to Jimbo over here. I mean, they may scream that across the ice, but they're not going to run out there and do that.
Yeah, and you're letting them either succeed or fail on their own. It's agile at its best, right? Like whether you're Scrum, safe, you name it, they got to do stuff on their own. I think part of especially if you're with a team that has just gone through, changed from doing stuff from a waterfall traditional method and moving into an agile environment. I think that's where Scrum Masters will probably feel more that type of pain, where they're being asked to do admin type work, because in the old traditional way, you had your project manager and it was really easy. And I fell for it too. I did it a couple times. It was really easy to tell the project manager, hey, schedule this meeting and I can go off and do my own thing. So it probably more of just you have to get them there. You have to get them to understand that they can do what they need to do to get there. They don't have to wait. One of the best things I've done to ensure to get away from doing that admin, as I do air quotes, that admin type work, is tell them, is like, by the time you tell me to schedule a meeting to do this, to do this, to do this, you could have probably done it with a phone call or scheduled a meeting yourself even sooner, because now you're working on 2 schedules instead of me trying to work with 3.
I hear you. And your advice is probably much, much better than my advice would be. Jeremy, if people wanted to continue the conversation about why a Scrum Master should not be an admin, how would they go about doing that?
They can get a hold of me through LinkedIn. They can find me there, Jeremy Berriault in Toronto. You can also get a hold of me through Twitter at jberriault and through my website, berriaultandassociates.com, which just got revamped. Very excited about it.
Jeremy, thank you again for bringing your wonderful QA corner, regardless as to whether or not we stray off the corner and go in the middle of the street and talk about Scrum Masters and things like that. Thank you again for bringing your wonderful advice to the Software Process and Measurement Cast.
Thanks, Tom. It's great being here.
Tony Timbol, welcome to the Software Process and Measurement Cast.
Thanks, Tom. I'm really excited to be here. I would love the last 2 times we chatted about this stuff.
You know, Tony, I am This is I think really important, this whole concept of agile requirements, because it's one of those things that's often overlooked. I think people have spent a lot of time in agile talking about what they felt were the sexy things. And let's face it, the blocking and tackling, things like work entry and things like agile requirements probably are not the sexiest things in the whole world, but without them, no agile for you. Tony, today let's spend our time on the To Tell a Story column talking about the requirements life cycle. Our requirements are born. They go through teenagerhood. They have hormones. They run around in cars. They crash, burn, get old, and die. Right? That's the life cycle of requirements. No?
That's awesome. Yeah. So when we talk about the life cycle of artifacts, or the readiness states of artifacts. So when we built the lean agile requirements pipeline framework, we had to define what's its natural life cycle, because we wanted to abstract the artifact. In other words, people should be able to create different things that represent the way they package and consume information. So if an organization likes a vision and goal document, and then a lean business case, and then a calendar roadmap and PowerPoint, if that's what they like, that's what they like. There's no problem. They should be able to use that. And an organization should be able, and those represent requirements. Obviously, those aren't user stories. So how do you get from that to user stories? And so the idea is that when we talk about a requirements artifact and its particular life cycle, like a plant, we say, look, whatever the ideas that you have, they're going to go through natural life cycle. How they're packaged, we don't care, because you have freedom and discretion of how you want to package that. But a requirement's going to go from being expressed, and it's going to go from being explored, it's going to go from being inspected, it's going to go to be refined, and then it's going to reach a level of consensus before that requirement, an individual one or a grouped one, is then said, yeah, this is ready. This is good enough now for it to move forward to hand off to development. And so that's the requirements artifact life cycle, the readiness states of a requirements artifact. Now, the requirements artifact can be anything. It can be a PowerPoint. It can be a Microsoft project plan. We break it down into two basic.
Oh my God, I'm having a heart attack. You said a bad word. I told you this was business safe, Tony. Microsoft project plan. I mean, that's now I've got to edit.
Not a lot of people you still use it. Regardless of the artifact, this is a judgment-free zone. This is a judgment-free zone when it comes to artifacts. You can use what you want, but it's going to go through this natural life cycle. But at the end of this life cycle, if you subscribe to the pipeline framework, you're going to do something unique with that artifact. You're going to produce epic statements that are consumable by agile teams. And that closes the gap between aspirational scope to executable scope.
Why are we talking about the life cycle of agile requirements artifacts rather than just the output of what the team does? Isn't it just the value that matters?
That's a great question. So one of the tensions that exist in the community is, look, trust teams to do what they need to do, equip them and empower them with all the information that they need, and then inspect their work product and make the corrections through fast feedback. That sounds great on paper, but when you have to scale that with a large organization with more than 3 or 4 teams, you have communication issues and interpretation issues, just the way people work. So this framework is really more to address the scaling challenge with large number of teams, as opposed to you got a small startup, you got 2 teams, you don't need this. You're going to be close to the work. You're going to be talking all the time. You don't need a lot of formality. Just get it done, and you're going to be good. But when you got 100 teams, 7 different budgets, and you're trying to coordinate this activity, getting organized and managing your requirements pipeline in a way that is synchronized with the development pipeline is a challenge. Now, the SAFE framework, the LESS framework, they try to address those with different methods and techniques, but they never address the challenge of that the business has of actually getting good requirements to the teams. There's always the assumption when you read those frameworks that these great requirements appear magically, and these features and user stories and backlogs get created, and now everything is ready to execute. That just doesn't work in the real world.
Oh, come on. We all believe in hopium. Okay, so all kidding aside, as you were walking through that scaling issue, all I could think of is this is why small organizations just abjectly find a way of blowing the pants off of these large organizations, because they can be more nimble. They don't have to go through all of these hoops. And the only reason a lot of these larger organizations exist is that they're barriers to entry, right? So is this requirement for requirements frameworks an embedding of inefficiency, or is there a way to make this efficient?
So smaller organizations are more nimble by the very nature of the fact that the number of connections between all the subject matter experts is small, is less, right? So you've got the Dunbar limit, which is a real limit that says, look, human beings can only have so many relational social connections to get anything done. So therefore, the smaller those nodal intersections, the more efficient the organism is going to be. A small organization, the more efficient organism. Problem is that you've got large organisms that have to create more complex networks and neural networks. And so the SAFE folks have addressed their way of doing it, the LESS folks, others, and so forth. So this is an attempt to help the larger organizations that have those embedded delays to act more nimbly, like a smaller organization, to implement within the business side what we call lean agile requirements teams. In other words, you as a business should be working in an agile way, just like your development partners. Now, that doesn't mean that you're coding, but it means that your work product requirements have to be developed incrementally, just like your development partners develop code incrementally. And so establishing rules, and we have an onboarding process, and that's one of the ideas that are part of the Agile Lean Requirements Pipeline Framework, is that business teams need to form that are agile teams. They can be Kanban or Scrum, whatever, self-organizing. And their whole way of doing things is to say, we're going to produce requirements incrementally that's synchronized with development so that we are very much like a smaller organization. We're going to be close to the work, close to the teams.
Tony, thank you for bringing your wonderful To Tell a Story column to the Software Process and Measurement Cast. By the way, Tony, we are probably, next time we get together, going to talk about, perhaps debate Dunbar's limit, given that there's no actual data and experimental information that take it from the chimpanzees that it was actually developed from to human beings. So we might not be limited by 246 or, that kind of a Dunbar.
I'd love to talk about that. That'd be a great idea. Yeah.
But that'll be fun. Interestingly enough, one of the other people that have been on the cast multiple times has suggested that a lot of social science is little less than rigorous in terms of repeatable experiments where you can get the same answer multiple times by running these social experiments. So, but neither here nor there. There probably is a limit. What I really like about the ideas that you're espousing here is that they are important to helping organizations act more nimble. And that's an important concept that I think we can all get behind. And very frankly, you were absolutely right. I think most frameworks wave a magic wand, whether it's Heck, even if it's Scrum with one team, wave a magic wand and say, well, first you get a backlog or you get a set of requirements and then you do all this other stuff. And the other stuff is wonderful and it's important and it's great to do. But I'm sorry, I don't have a magic wand. If I did, well, hey, there'd be world peace and we'd end hunger and all that kind of stuff. But perhaps you've gotten a magic wand and you can solve this requirements thing. So, Tony, how do people get in touch with you? How do they find out about your new framework, your new ebook, your wonderful tool, all of that?
Sure. TonyTimbol.com. I'll be blogging about this as extensively. Also, the ebook is free to anybody who wants to trade their email address for my mailing list and stay in touch with my eventual newsletter. I'm going to have a LinkedIn newsletter about this, but essentially you're going to be provided with material on the ebook. So it's just really trying to build my email list and my network that way. So the ebook is yours to have for your email.
They don't even have to get a tattoo?
No tattoo.
No tattoos. Tony, thank you for bringing your wonderful To Tell a Story column. And thank you for letting me to tell stories along the way.
You bet.
Susan Parente, I'm not a Scrum analyst. Welcome to the Software Process and Measurement Cast.
Hi, Tom. Always a pleasure to be here and excited about our conversation, continuing to talk about virtual agile projects and how we work on those teams.
We've had quite an arc. We started with, your recommendation about getting people together up front, which I think is really, really solid. We talked about focusing on people last time and making sure that there was that connection even when you were apart. And I think that, gets us to a point. Even though I think we could go for many more sessions on this, why don't we tackle the age-old bugaboo? Don't we have to have tools to do this well?
Well, we sure do. And, again, going back to what I said, the tool doesn't need to be the Ferrari, the Rolls Royce. It could be the Honda Civic, even the Prius, if you're looking at fuel efficiency. So what does that look like? And fundamentally, I do think that some type of visual web connection is valuable. I personally use Skype often. I use Skype for individual connections that I make. Some of my clients use Skype for business. That actually is not free. It has some different features, performs a little bit better when you have multiple people. If you're one-on-one, I found Skype works very well. And I've actually used Skype just for voice calls sometimes because of some of its features, not necessarily using the video also. But I do like having some sort of video connection with people. I think that's really valuable. As far as other tools, think about it. We're doing our work. We're using spreadsheets. We're using other systems that are online. Even when we're co-located, people are using those. So a lot of that is transferable to our virtual team. Another free one. I'm big on the free ones because I do work individually. And so for me to purchase a piece of software is an investment. So I try to see what I can use for free or use whatever my client is using that they've paid for. So one of the things I use for my task board is Trello, and I love it. It's free, but it feels like to me that it's a paid for tool because of the features that it has and the value that it has. I think there are limitations to what you get for free. So if you have, more that you want or different features or functions at a higher level, there may be some cost for those. But the way I use it right now with one of my key customers, I use Trello for our task boards, and it works out really well. I manage a portfolio of products, and we have a number of different projects pretty much every quarter. Every quarter we go through the backlog and say, reprioritize things and look at the value and what we want to do next. And then as we work through it, we bring up projects on the Trello board and create checklists for the work and tasks that are going to be done. And it's really, really effective. And it's great for my client because they're managing me along with a bunch of other people who are also managing those projects. And so they can look at all of them all together. I have visibility to other colleagues and their projects that they're managing. And then I have a place where I can go and see, okay, what are we working on right now? Who's doing what? I can create messages for each of the project boards. So, when I manage virtual teams, I'm not talking about managing one virtual team. Right now, I am probably managing 5 or 6 virtual projects, some of which I'm the subject matter expert for doing the development and design, others which I'm just kind of monitoring what's going on. So having a Trello board like that really helps to manage a number of things at once. Those are 2 tools that I use often. I mean, obviously there's email. SharePoint is also great if you're sharing a lot of files. I know a lot of people that use Google Docs. You do want to be careful with that because there are limitations to how much space you have. Also, when I think about using Google Docs or Dropbox, I always think to myself, how much of this content is, at risk to be putting out there in a public area, even if it's locked down. You want to consider that when you're using, really any free service, any free cloud service is this something confidential that needs to be locked down? And so that may push you to having to pay for a service that has a little bit more security of data.
If we didn't have these tools, would virtual be possible?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I've had virtual teams before Skype was available, or I'll say even effective. We've got the phone. Everybody's got a phone. It's the sort of traditional way to virtually interact with people. And I don't think, when the phones were first invented, anybody called that virtual communication, but it is. And so that for sure is a tool that we can definitely use. Everybody has email. I don't think that that's a limitation caused by anyone. I think of some people I know who don't even have computers, but they still have smartphones. And my parents who are a bit older, they have mobile phones, maybe not smartphones, but they're on email. My dad is going to be 91 soon, and he has an email account. He gets on email. Can't always forward files properly and things like that, but he can read messages and reply to them. So for almost 91, that's not so bad. So I think that there are tools that everybody has. And what I would say is, when you go to pick tools, it's like you're going grocery shopping for a dinner. What is the result that you want? Okay, you want to make a pot roast. Okay, so if you want to make a pot roast, what are the ingredients you need? So you do the same thing with your virtual team. What are we creating? Okay, what are the ingredients for that? What do we need to support creating that? So some of your tools may be specific to your project team, maybe to where they're located. If you've got people in different time zones, more asynchronous tools that allow you to communicate with people at different times may be more important. If you're working with people in the same time zone, synchronous tools like Skype may be more important for that. So that's something that you want to consider and have it be results driven rather than like walking through the grocery store saying, oh man, I'm in the mood for Oreos, because that's not going to get you dinner. That's just kind of meet your immediate sugar rush need.
Before we wrap this up, do you ever see a scenario where people let the tools derive how they work rather than figure out the tools they need to work the way they want to work?
Absolutely. And I don't want to name tools because I don't want to disparage that tool, but I have seen people say, I can't do an agile project because I don't have this tool. Because it's a tool. Actually, I'll name it because it's not disparaging to it, but I've had people say I can't do agile project management because I don't have Jira. I'm like, you don't have to have Jira to do agile. I mean, first of all, agile's an approach and there are a number of different methods. Do those methods have, can you use Jira to support those methods? Absolutely. And if you have Jira, certainly get it. It's a much bigger, blown out version of Taskboard and does a lot of other things. For a large project, I can definitely see the benefits of it. But don't think to yourself, I can't do this because I don't have this tool. So if you want to do Agile virtually, you can do it. You're not restricted by having those tools, but you can look at, what can I afford? What do I need to do? And then pick the tools that are the best fit for that. But don't think you can't do it because you don't have a specific tool. Hey, Jira's great. I wish some of my clients had Jira so that I could learn more about it. But my focus when I teach, my focus when I work with people is, what are you trying to do? Don't get overly focused on the tool and using every piece of the tool. Use the parts of the tool that are going to be effective. Again, it's about value, right? So value is being efficient in what we're using and how we're using it, not just using it because it's there. Okay?
Susan Parente, I'm not a scrum-fundamentalist, and neither am I. How can people continue the conversation?
Well, they can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn, and that would be a great way to reach out to me. If you do, shoot me a note and say you heard me on the podcast so I get a little related to you and know where I know you from or where you know me. And also, you could shoot me an email at Parente, P as in Paul, ARENTE, at s3-tec.com for S3 Technologies. And shoot me an email, and I'd love to talk to you more about virtual Agile project management. Thank you.
Susan, as always, a wonderful conversation. Talk to you again next month.
Okay, thank you, Tom.
In Reread Saturday News, I'm packaging this show well ahead of time. Therefore, all I can say for sure about the reread is to remember to buy a copy of Coaching Agile Teams by Liz Atkins. Link in the show notes and read along. A quick advertisement. Controlling work entry requires preparation and knowledge building to establish a path to control work entry. Magic wands are not normally available, which is why Jeremy Willits and I have developed a work entry workshop. We recently delivered the workshop at the Path to Agility of 2022 in Columbus, Ohio to rave reviews. Interested? Email us at tcagley@tomcagley.com or willitsjm@gmail.com. Next week, we have John Quigley and Jon and Susan together. It's sort of a Jon and Susan-polza next week. If process improvement is a never-ending journey, why do so many people ask, are we there yet?